The Galactic Council had deemed Earth's admission a mistake within the first cycle. Humans were too emotional, too unpredictable, too soft. The other species, the crystalline Vexthari, the hive-minded Zelnok, the mechanical Principate, all agreed on one thing: humanity's weakness would be their undoing. Neo discovered Ava in the refuse disposal sector of Station Kepler-22, the massive trading hub that orbited the neutron star at the edge of civilized space. The stench of decay and chemical waste burned his nostrils as he searched through the industrial compactors, looking for salvageable tech parts to repair his aging shuttle. That's when he heard it, a sound so faint he almost missed it beneath the grinding of the disposal machines. A whimper. Neo pushed aside a twisted sheet of plasteel and froze. Huddled in the corner of a waste container, barely visible beneath layers of refuse, was a small creature. Her fur, once lustrous he imagined, was matted with filth and blood. 4 eyes blinked up at him, 2 vertical pupils contracting in the harsh light, 2 horizontal ones clouded with infection. Her 6 limbs were curled protectively around her midsection, and he could count every rib beneath her torn hide. A Kixari juvenile, one of the vermin species. The Kixari had been the first species humanity encountered after achieving faster-than-light travel. They were also the first species humanity learned were considered less than worthless by the galactic community. Scavengers, pests. Their homeworld had been stripped of resources centuries ago, their people scattered across the stars, unwelcome everywhere they went. Neo had heard the stories. Kixari were beaten in the streets. Their children were taken and dumped in disposal units. Some stations had bounties on them, paying credits per tale turned in. The civilized species claimed the Kixari spread disease, stole food, bred too quickly. The excuses humanity had once used against its own people, Neo thought bitterly. "Hey there," he whispered, crouching down slowly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature, Ava, he would later learn she called herself, hissed weakly, baring rows of tiny teeth. But there was no strength behind it. She was dying. Neo pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her trembling body. She was lighter than he expected, barely 20 pounds of fur and bone. As he lifted her, she made a sound that broke something in his chest, a chirping, questioning sound as if she couldn't comprehend why he wasn't hitting her. "I've got you," Neo said. "You're safe now." The medical bay on Neo's shuttle wasn't designed for xenobiology, but he did his best. He cleaned her wounds with antiseptic, wrapped her broken limb, and coaxed water between her lips. For 3 days she remained unconscious, her breathing shallow and irregular. On the 4th day, her 4 eyes opened. Neo sat beside her recovery cot, eating a ration bar. When she stirred, he offered her a piece. She stared at it with such confusion that Neo realized she'd probably never been offered food before. Only ever had to fight for scraps. Slowly, painfully, Ava reached out one trembling paw and took the offering. She ate it so carefully, so reverently, that Neo had to look away to hide his tears. Over the following weeks, Ava healed. Her fur grew back in patches of silver and blue, beautiful and iridescent when clean. She learned that Neo's ship was safe, that she could sleep without fear of being kicked awake or thrown out an airlock. She learned that the humans' hands brought comfort, not pain, and she learned to communicate. The Kixari had their own language, but few bothered to learn it. Neo spent hours with translation software, piecing together her sounds and gestures. Ava was patient with him, surprisingly so. She would repeat words, correct his pronunciation with gentle chirps. "Why?" she asked him one night, her vocoder translating the series of clicks and whistles into standard galactic. "Why say vermin?" Neo looked at her, really looked at her, at the intelligence in her 4 eyes, at the careful way she held herself, at the fear that still lingered despite the safety he'd provided. "You're not vermin," Neo said firmly. "You're a person. And where I come from, we don't leave people to die in the trash. Other species say Kixari are worthless. You are human. You are new to the galaxy. You should believe them." Neo laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Ava, humans have done terrible things to each other. We've called each other vermin. We've thrown each other away. We've committed atrocities based on nothing more than how someone looked or where they were born." He met her eyes. "But we've also learned. We've grown. And if there's one thing humans refuse to accept, it's that any sentient being is worthless." Ava's ears, 3 on each side of her head, flicked forward in surprise. You believe Kixari are sentient? Of course you are. You speak, you feel, you think. Anyone who says otherwise is either ignorant or lying to justify cruelty. For a long moment, Ava was silent. Then she did something Neo had never seen a Kixari do. She stood on her hind legs and wrapped her four front limbs around him in an embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me." Word spread through Station Kepler 22. The human had taken in a Kixari. The other species mocked him, called him contaminated, refused to trade with him. A Vexthari merchant spat crystalline shards at his feet. A Zelnok hive cluster threatened to report him to station security for harboring vermin. Neo didn't care. What he did care about was the change he began to notice. Other Kixari, hearing about Ava, began to emerge from the shadows. They came to his shuttle in the dead of station night, asking if the stories were true. Was there really a human who didn't hate them? Neo welcomed them. He couldn't save them all, but he could offer medical supplies, food, safety for a night. He taught Ava to help him, and she became a bridge between her people and this strange, compassionate human. 6 months after finding Ava, Neo submitted a proposal to the Galactic Council. He had documentation, proof of Kixari intelligence, creativity, social structures. He had testimony from the Kixari themselves, and he had a simple argument that humanity had learned long ago: sentience demands dignity. The Council rejected his proposal, but Neo noticed something. 3 species abstained from the vote rather than voting against it. A crack in the foundation. That night, Ava found Neo on the observation deck staring out at the neutron star's fierce light. "You are strange, Neo," she said softly. "You fight for those who are not your own species." Neo smiled. "That's the thing about humans, Ava. We've learned that our own is bigger than we once thought. It includes everyone who can think, feel, and dream." He looked at her. "It includes you." Ava's 4 eyes shimmered with tears, a trait she shared with humans, though the other species found it disgusting. "Then I will fight too," she said. "If you show me how." Neo placed his hand on her shoulder. "I already am." Across the station, in the darkness of the disposal sectors and the hidden corners where the unwanted gathered, whispers began to spread. Whispers of hope. Whispers of a species that had learned from its own darkness and now carried light to others. The Galactic Council had called humanity weak for their compassion. They were about to learn how strong compassion could be. The end.